You may recall at Bunkhead Towers, I call it Bunkhead Towers. Some people still call it Bankhead, but I think of Enron. And why should I talk about so much shit? You don't remember. I used to get a signal, ta-da, and then that turned out to be, uh, you know, from some famous people. But it's sort of like that now. I just look for something, to kind of distract me for sleep and so on. Well, I got a bunch of stuff. Bringing up a whole bunch of issues. Just a few things that have me recalling all kinds of things. And updating some stuff just in terms of a few catalysts here in the middle of the night. It's almost 1:30. I say almost 1:30, a.m. on the 15th of September, 2025. And I'd like to say, on the matter of financial meltdown, there are many ways to understand that, very many ways that are conceptually useful. And I was thinking about all that and thinking, well, I don't necessarily want to get into that can of worms right now at this hour, as broken down as I am. Um, but I was thinking about something similar to that, and actually, there is a great overlap between what you might say is a banking meltdown or financial meltdown and the political meltdown. And I have in mind, something everybody knows that nowadays Europe, even also including Great Britain, and even beyond the EU, not too far beyond. Uh, and then in the U.S., where immigration is a terrible issue now, belatedly people are saying, it's a terrible problem. It is a terrible problem. But basically, in too many places, people saw that tsunami of human beings looking for some sort of satisfaction with a worldview that is at issue, even if the narrow, personal, direct, urgent issues of any given uh, migrant or immigrant, even if those personal views don't add up to a big picture, there is a big picture, and that is that there are elites in the developed world who know that these people are on their doorstep for a reason, and they know what it is. It is that in common among people is the understanding these people have been cheated, and they know it. Basically, it's a severe form of what people grumble about in developed countries when they talk about inequality and all of that, and the dysfunction that represents. It's no different when you think of the globe, the entire world, and you have people showing up wanting what they construe to be justice. For some, it really is obnoxious. They figure they could come and camp on your front lawn or your backyard until you give them what they want. Well, in the immediate sense, that seems a bit outrageous. But if you take the worldview, and that's what people have done, you know that these people, have been sold. I know this is simplistic, but it's true. They've been sold smartphones uh, by entrepreneurs. And among other things, they have learned how little they have compared to others. Some of it is exaggerated, but nevertheless, they know. that they are not, it's not that they think they're entitled to a brand new, what, uh, fancy car or something, but that they might be worth more in terms of whatever labor they can do than what's been offered so far somewhere else in the world. It's true that not all of them can come to a culture that is alien to them and fit right in, to the economy. They can't, and they know that, but they know, there's just something wrong about people who are sitting around eating Arby's or McDonald's, which is fairly modest, or fish and chips, while they have almost nothing. And so when these people show up, what I'm getting to is the bottom line, and that is these people who have thrown up their hands and said, okay, we know what the mea culpas are, but we won't be offering that. Instead, we'll throw up our hands and let pee-wee politicians deal with the mess. So that's what's happening. The ones who actually understand all kinds of things that are germane are not disposed to take a hand or lift a hand. Instead, they throw up their hands. They claim that nation building is a form of colonial exploitation, and they say we're damned if we do and damned if we don't, and we are stepping out of the limelight or whatever and let homegrown politicians, a lady grows up over the grocery store and ends up botching any number of things on an ideological basis. And then other people do much the same. And they become, the people that are looked to for some redress. There's a hint at what's missing in terms of sending immigrants abroad. That if they come in, they're taken by jet to some other place far cheaper in order to warehouse people somewhere else. That's a hint of what might be done. The next step, of course, is to repudiate the idea that there can be no Marshall Plan. We will not have a Marshall Plan. It's just anathema. Well, if you don't, then you'll have more of a meltdown than anybody's diplomatic terminology for the problems. The people who know what they did are offering no mea culpas. I can kind of sympathize. Never mind that. Get to work, I would say. But they won't. Because they feel that it is a thankless task to deal in nation building if it is lost in cheap rhetoric when mobs rule in the media in terms of colonialism. What's needed is a Marshall Plan suited to today's problem. The Marshall Plan dealt with other problems. A Marshall Plan today can be construed to mean things that elite people know about, but they throw up their hands. In every capital in Europe, and the U.S. for that matter, we end up with situations like Los Angeles, where really people threw up their hands and said, we can't do anything about this. But in that case, there was no gentry involved. There's a kind of democracy. The people who threw up their hands in Los Angeles were not of those sorts who understand how to help. It's true, they can't help, they don't know how. Many people are defeatists about things, and if they remain defeatists, whether it's LA or London, where there are people who are smart enough, but they're defeatists, then it's going to be hell to pay until finally some people who do understand how things are done and what can be done. Until that happens, there's going to be this differential at every border of every sovereign state, and governments on both sides of any border are going to throw up their hands because there is not any cooperation to speak of. The UN does not do what it was supposed to do after the containment of communism, which more or less became the racketeering known as the ongoing racketeering known as NATO. The UN participated, but in doing so, they lost their edge in terms of what's needed now. But that can change. But I don't really know of anybody who thinks the UN is worth much to the world. It's been diminished and diminished and diminished, and I think it was reasonable to let NATO more or less, carry on to contain communism. There was NATO and the Warsaw Pact and all the things all around all of that. And so the United Nations learned that they were not needed to try to do any of that, and they have busied themselves with many, many agencies and so on. But now, it's as though nobody wants to invest in the United Nations. So far, we have people who know better, who are just shirking some heavy lifting that they know how to do and others don't. This spreads too to parts of academia. People are just not, volunteering the way they did for World War II. There are many people who volunteered expertise and leadership during World War II who are usually just completely unknown. I'm talking about people who are truly experts. But it was actually, no matter what, it was a simpler time than now when, for example, I've mentioned, orbital mechanics, and I've only heard just a hint every now and then, like a telegraphic inclusion about people who know what's at stake. Many people think, what is so preposterous? Nothing could be worse than wasting our time on that. That's fine, because the people who know are going to, basically they'll have it pretty much nailed down, I'd say in 10 years, in terms of what's possible. There won't be the cost of entry into the enterprise that represents. If you deal in singularities, the opportunities will be foreclosed. But that's not the issue. The issue, while that's taking place, is nevertheless nation building, whether people want to use that term or not. I can remember, I've said it before, the Runt, Bush II, built what he thought was going to be a hub of inspiring leadership in Iraq, a building bigger than the Pentagon. It was going to be the place where things were decided in some wondrous way. Later he said, I'm not in the business of nation building. He said that after he was a complete failure, and he knew it, and he blamed his problems on, like any number of people who say, I had the right idea, but it was not implemented. Same as that trust character. Nobody followed my directives. Yeah, right. Well, anyway, that's daunting, for some. I mean, they see the clown building a big building there and so on, and thinking that he could do something. Having done that, he didn't know what to do there. the edifice complex has been attributed to one group or another, and there's some proof about it. But I mean, it was another building built, and now does he have any clue about what to do there? Not really. He certainly didn't. He hardly knew what to do in the United States, let alone in the land that he conquered. What did he say? Mission accomplished. On another front about all that. Well, if you define the mission, then you can say whether it was or was not accomplished. Never mind all that. We have brand new PhDs or even old ones who are fascinated by their own ability to manipulate silliness like that. But anyway, some people are going to have to get serious about nation building, or they're just going to have a terrible, terrible legacy. Some people think, well, if I get into something like that, it's thankless and I would fail, not because I don't know what to do, but because nobody will be listening to what I have to say. Well, that's true right now for a lot of people. So what is the recourse? Well, people have literally experimented with the First Amendment and found out that that too can be switched off or switched back on, like a light switch in a room, according to the whims of faceless or notorious people whose faces are well known. Either way. And that can only happen because people don't really believe much is at stake in terms of the First Amendment. If they really, if that was some sort of third rail, then people couldn't, toggle the First Amendment on or off according to some bureaucratic imperative. There used to be one thing or another thought to be a third rail in American politics. Nowadays, people don't even know what that refers to. You have two groups. Some are 40 and some are 20. And they don't even know what that means. But there's some others who do. We have a serious cultural challenge on the matter of nation building. It's not the same as colonization. The Marshall Plan was not, although some said it was or would be. It was not, although hegemony then was decided in ways far simpler and less expensive than is going to happen. Let's see, today is, the year is 2025. By the time we get to 2035, wow, it's going to be a different reality. And it won't be a matter of nation building, because those ideas are pedestrian compared to the concepts that will be put to work by 2035. And I'm not talking about fission or fusion. I'm talking about something that I don't think many people have given much thought to. And that's okay. Hell, I'm 79. I don't have to think about any of the prospects, I've got my own agenda for what that's worth. But I do hope, nevertheless, all of the things being equal, I'd like to think that things could begin to contain or support ideas that would make a difference in many lives.